of awarding this Distinguished Citizen Awards to two wonderful people in our community, David and Elizabeth Chu Richter. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we weren't able to present the actual award to them in person because everything was done virtually. So earlier tonight, the council presented the Distinguished Citizen Award for 2020 to David and Elizabeth Richter. And at this time, I would like to just have one more round of applause to show them how much we appreciate all the things that they've done for our community. And at this time, I'd like to direct your attention to the screens to take a look at the sponsors that have been participating in this event. It's really been wonderful. This year, our scouting program is going to benefit from this event because as of the last count, we have raised over $100,000 for the South Texas Council. Thank you, everybody, for all of your participation. And we have, in addition to our sponsors at the different levels, a very special group of supporters of scouting that I would like to call out for you tonight. We call that the McIver-Furman Legacy Society members. These folks commit to make $15,000 gifts over a 3-year period that support the council's day-to-day operations, which is the lifeblood of scouting in our region. If those society members that are present tonight, would you please stand to be recognized? Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to introduce our Scout executive, Marty Sepulveda, to give us an update on the impact that scouting is making in South Texas.
Thank you, Craig. Well, thank you for being here with us this evening. We really appreciate your support, particularly our sponsors here tonight. What a great evening to honor a great scouter, John Jackson. So I want to just briefly show a couple of videos of our scouting impact. Normally, this part of the program, we normally have a couple of scouts up here and giving a great story of the impact scouting is making. But because of the challenges of the pandemic, it's sometimes not as easy to get our scouts together. So we did have a couple of videos we want to show you guys, but I will say that scouting is alive in South Texas. Like many nonprofits, we've had to sit back and rethink some of the things we're doing, the struggles we've had. However, the community support is just tremendous. And I think it's telling of the values that people still see in scouting. And we got lights. All right, there we go. Awesome. So with the pandemic, we had to pivot a little bit and do some things online, and we had to do some things that we normally don't do, but we also were very creative, like the lights tonight. So thank you so much. So further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our AV team here, and we're going to show two videos. One, just kind of highlighting our pandemic last year and the things we did going into 2021, but also then a short video of some scouts telling us what they like about scouting. I think you will enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Mary Claire, and I'm a Scout leader from the South Texas Council. The South Texas Council would like to thank all the donors for their support. Our mission is to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices throughout their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and law. The South Texas Council offers leadership and character development, outdoor programs, team building activities, and more for ages 7 to 20. Scouts in the South Texas Council have given back to their local communities, learned life skills, interacted with scouts from across the world, and attended leadership seminars and countless other events. While the COVID-19 pandemic prevented scouts from attending camp together, going to scout meetings in person, and other in-person events, that did not stop our mission. We continue to shape young people by offering virtual events for all ages, and we continue to offer safe options for all scouts. Scouting in South Texas continues to thrive, and we plan to keep going strong in creating leaders of tomorrow. Hello, my name is Mary Claire.
Well, I like the adventures and how to learn how to be a scout. I like the racing. Me and my dad did my car design. It was the engine of a bullet train. It went fast. I won first place in a lot of races. I am the future of scouting.
What I like about scouting is we get to socialize and we get to help other people and volunteer ourselves, and it's just really fun to do all of it.
What about scouting is like helping out the community and just playing with your friends, doing different activities, and just whoever created this, it's like going so well because we can meet different people.
What I like about scouting is that it's given me so many experiences I never would have experienced through school or even outside of school if I wasn't in Scouts. I've learned how to advance my communication and public speaking skills, and I've learned so much more about the outdoors.
I like being a scout because it's good to hang out with some friends. It's a good way to learn knots for your future age, like if you get in a certain situation. And I like going on campouts. I like sometimes fishing with my dad, going hiking.
What I like about scouting is you get to go on fun camping trips. You get your knife choking ship. You learn how to shoot bow and arrows too.
Thank you, Marty, for that update on the impact scouting is having. And, you know, there are a lot of people that need to be thanked for their involvement in our community. And one of the groups that we always want to lift up and celebrate is our elected and appointed officials. If you're an elected or appointed official in our region, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you. And one of the other things I always enjoy is trying to get to know the audience in an event like this. And because you just saw those videos on the impact of scouting, I'm curious about this group's scouting experience. If you have been in Scouts, if you are in Scouts, if you're a parent or a grandparent of a Scout, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you. I thought there might be a few of us out there. At this point, it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage the Port of Corpus Christi Commissioner and Texas Aggie and former president of the South Texas Council, I might add, and a Distinguished Citizen Award winner, Mr. Charlie Zahn. Charlie?
It's my honor this evening to introduce our guest speaker. And when you say the name John Sharp, one thing that you have to know is that he's had over 3 decades of being a public servant to those that live and work in the state of Texas. He graduated from that great university in College Station, Texas, Texas A&M University in 1972. I'm a little older than you are. He then got a master's degree from Texas State, and then he began his public service. He was a member of the House of Representatives. He was a member of the State Senate. He was a member of the Railroad Commission, and he was a member of he was the comptroller of the state of Texas. But then in September of 2011, the Board of Regents of the Texas A&M University system appointed him as the chancellor of the Texas A&M system. The Texas A&M system is one of the largest in the country, and Chancellor Sharp is over 11 different universities in the state of Texas. There's 8 state agencies that work under him at Texas A&M University. He's got a $9.6 billion budget that he works with. And more importantly, He helps 152,000 students earn their way to a degree at one of the A&M system universities. We're so proud that he's a South Texan. He's from Victoria. We're proud that he's a true friend of scouting. And before I let you acknowledge him here, I want to tell him one thing. We sure do like the young lady that you sent to us at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Chancellor. We really like her. But I'd like you to welcome Chancellor John Sharp.
Thank you, Charlie, and howdy. You see there are Aggies in the room, they understand that. I'm a little disappointed. Charlie called me and he said, I asked him, I said, what do you want me to talk about? And he said, I want you to talk about 10 minutes. Well, I have never given a 10-minute speech in my whole friggin' life, and so I'm gonna try, but my jokes usually go more than 10 minutes. But since he said, I noticed that it was recorded, a lot of jokes have been eliminated, and so we're gonna talk. But it is wonderful to be here, especially wonderful to be here with a guy that I have known for 46 years. Can you believe we're that old, Jackson? My God. I first met Johnny back in 1975 when he and I were working for a guy named Phil Graham, who was running for the United States Senate. I recall he got beat real bad that time, so we must not have done very good. But I did get to know Johnny. And I'll talk about Johnny a little bit later, but there's some folks here that I want you to meet. First of all, I have two of my presidents who are great presidents. First one is Kelly Miller, who is president of Texas A&M Corpus Christi, right here. And the second is Mark Hussey and his wife, Melissa, who is the president of Texas A&M Kingsville, right here. And we'll talk about those universities a little bit too. And since I get a whole bunch of my money from the state of Texas, you can bet that I'm fixing to talk about two elected officials here. One of them is Chuy Hinojosa, who has been a friend of mine and a friend of the Texas A&M system forever. The only thing I have a problem with Chuy is you cannot get road and bridge money anywhere in the state of Texas. This is the truth. You know why? Because it's all going to this bridge right here. I'm telling you, I am trying to get a little bridge over a little bitty old creek, you know, trying to get something, $500,000 is all I'm trying to get. Oh no, all the money is going to Corpus Christi for some bridge that Hinojosa robbed the state of Texas of and gave it to all you folks. And speaking of Rob, Todd Hunter does a pretty good job of that too. And Todd, thank you for everything that you do for the state of Texas. I want to tell you, somebody asked me a while ago to tell a story about my best experiences at A&M, and the best experiences are the students. And I can't tell the cricket story about Rick Perry because I told y'all that the last time here, and I've had 3 people say, I've already heard it, I don't want to hear that again. But I want to tell you a couple of true stories. And the students are what make you young. So I was late, this is about a year and a half ago, I was late to a distinguished professors meeting, and you know, you don't go late to distinguished professors meetings. And so I have this special God pass, I can park anywhere I want, you know, so I've used it that day and I parked in the middle of the street and I was late, I ran up into Rudder Tower, met with the distinguished professors, and then came back down, and there was some construction going on where they were building a hotel. And a backhoe had broken a gas line. And so there was this yellow rope around, yellow tape around this area. Well, right in the middle of that yellow tape was, guess what? My Ford F-150. And so I didn't want anybody to know that I was stupid or that I'd abused my parking permit. So I just sat down on the edge and waited for this to happen like a good little boy. And a student from Brownwood, Texas, who is a microbiology major, I sat down next to him because he had a car that was in the parking lot and he couldn't get to it. And he sits down and he had no clue who I was, or did he care? And he said, oh, so you're waiting on your car in the parking garage too? And I said, yeah. And he was telling me about his mom and dad, and I was asking him about what he was majoring in. And And, you know, he told me he had never made a B, and I told him, well, we got that in common. I never made a B either. I came close once, but I never made a B. We're having this conversation, and it was going along just fine. And then he got real quiet, and I noticed he was looking at my truck. And finally, he turned to me and he said, hey, how'd you like to be the dumbass that parked his truck right there? And the other story that is good is I had, these are actually true stories. And you know, as a former politician, you know, I'd tell you nothing but true stories, right? And so we had had guests over at our house, and I'm hard of hearing, so I take my hearing aids out. I can't hear anything. A fire alarm could go off and I couldn't hear it. And so I got up the next morning and I noticed that the kitchen door looked kind of funny. It was sort of broken. And I go outside and there's a hammer in the yard and a whole bunch of stuff that's supposed to be in the back of my truck toolbox. I didn't think anything of it. So about 5 o'clock that afternoon, I get a call from University Police. Said, Mr. Sharp, you got a black Range Rover? I said, yeah, I sure do. He said, is it in your garage? And I said, I'm sure it is. I'm looking at the garage now, it's closed. And he said, would you mind opening it? And I opened it and I said, oh my God, my car's gone. He said, well, it's kind of over here in some apartments back here. And I said, so I'll go over there. There's this kid from Katy, Texas. And he had got him a DWI about 2 weeks before. And he was off probation that particular Friday night and decided to celebrate by going back to the Dixie Chicken, and got in a position where they wouldn't let him drive because they took his license away for a while. And so he had to walk all the way across campus, and he got almost home and he decided, I was talking to him, I said, what did you do? He said, well, I just decided I was tired of walking and there was your driveway. And I figured bound to be a car there. And he goes and he doesn't see a car. So he says, well, probably inside is the keys. So he just broke the door down. You don't think he was drunk or nothing, do you? And he broke the door down and he goes in and finds my keys, takes a car and drives off. Well, the next morning, he calls the cops and says, hey, can you help me find the owner of a car that I stole last night? I mean, we got honest kids at A&M. And so anyway, so I told the police, I said, just scare the heck out of him. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about breaking and entering and grand theft auto, 2 felonies. I said, we are not going to ruin this kid's life. I said, just scare him for about 2 or 3 days, you know, put the fear of the Lord in him. And then I'm going to sentence him to having lunch with me every Monday until he graduates. And so I had to do it. And so the first Monday, we are sitting there in this restaurant and I'm talking to him. I said, we're trying to figure out whether or not maybe he has alcoholism, and he didn't. He just had a good week. And I was sitting there talking to him and I said, you know, you're lucky. I said, I keep a 357 Magnum by my bed, and I got this dog back there that's just a good thing that dog didn't get a hold of you. His name is Wapo. He said, is that his name? I played fetch with him for about 30 minutes in your hall. And I'm proud to report that the young man has a $125,000 a year job with an engineering company in Houston, Texas, and his mom and daddy do not know that story. He came to me, he asked me, he called me not long ago and he said, I said, your mom and daddy know this story yet? And he said, nah, they know about the DWI, but they don't know that I broke into Chancellor's house. And I said, that's good. Said, wait exactly 10 years and tell your mom and dad, and it'll be funny at Thanksgiving. But before 10 years, it's not going to be very funny. But in the whole system at Texas A&M, we have some unbelievably remarkable kids. It is true in Corpus. It is true in Kingsville. You tell me where else. I mean, they are different in our system than they are anyplace else. I'm not being critical of anybody, but you tell me another place where a public university has 10,000 kids in a basketball arena on Bible study for 3 hours and there are no adults in the room. You tell me a place where thousands of kids in Kingsville and Corpus and College Station meet, and sometimes 20,000 at a time, to do nothing on a weekend except help poor people paint their fence and all these kinds of things. And if you go to church anywhere around our universities, you better get there early because the doors are packed. It's one of the most church places that I've ever seen. We also have more Boy Scouts than any system in the state of Texas, and we're very proud of it. And we think one of the reasons is because our kids are like those scouts. For instance, Texas A&M is the #1 recruiting place for the Central Intelligence Agency in the nation. Now, why is that? Because we've got brilliant kids? Yeah, they're smart, but because the kind of kids they are. They're patriotic kids. They come from families that by George believe in what this country is about. You don't see a bunch of commie pinko demonstrations at any of our campuses. These are young men and women that are well-grounded. I don't know if we get them that way before they get to Kingsville and Corpus and A&M, or we turn them into it. But by God, there are some unbelievable young men and women, and we're so proud to have them. I want to talk about Johnny. John, you know, when you read what John has done and the stuff that he doesn't get paid to do, and I was talking to him about this, and I said, where in the world did you get all this? I don't know how you have time to do any business. And he told me he got it from his dad, that his dad was the same way. His dad was in those pictures and was involved in scouting too. But all of you know Johnny's from Rockport. The reason, by the way, that you set this record in fundraising was because of the friends of Johnny Jackson. I mean, I know how all of this works, and people, his friends, you wanted to honor him and be a part of scouting at the same time. And so to go over $100,000 in a scouting fundraiser in the South Texas Council is pretty remarkable. So Johnny, thank you for what you've done here. He's obviously a Rockport native. He's just two decades in the family seafood business. That's what he was in when I knew him. There's a book called Taking the Tide that details his entire family history. He co-founded the Rockport Group at Morgan Stanley in 1991, 92. Tireless work ethic inherited from 4 generations of Jacksons who called Rockport home. His city, state, and nation service has been a constant theme. He graduated from Texas A&M University, Kingsville, back when it was Texas A&M, earned his BBA, MBA there, academic All-American, Sigma Chi brother, committed to the community. He's been the president of the local Chamber of Commerce at least twice, named Citizen of the Year in 1996 and in 2000, founded Aransas County ISD Education Foundation, founded the 100 Club of Aransas County, founding chairman of the Aransas County Partnership Economic Development Corporation, was an Eagle Scout, was a Scoutmaster of a troop in Rockport, Troop 49, served as president of the South Texas Council of Boy Scouts of America, chairman of 2 Camp Karankawa capital campaigns. And by the way, I went to Camp Karankawa 3 different times, and sometimes at cocktail parties, I still break out in the Camp Karankawa song. He was a board member of Christi Hospital Foundation, many other local groups, even sings in the First Presbyterian Church of Rockport Choir. I'd like to be there to hear that. John's success, both professional and personal, he will be the first to tell you, has a great deal to do with the ethics and the code of life that he learned from being a scout. And so just for that public service, Johnny Jackson, congratulations for what you've done. And I want to take just a minute to talk about the South Texas Council, because I was a beneficiary of that as well. When I was a scout, he said I was from Victoria. I'm from Placido. Placido is a wide spot in the road between Victoria and Port Lavaca, and went to Bloomington High School. But we got to go to Camp Karankawa, we got to go to Camp Canale, and all of the places that kids in Corpus got to go to. But the South Texas Council now serves nearly 2,000 youth in 17 counties. Their scouts had participated in over 15,000 hours of documented community service, 24 new Eagle Scouts this year, and there's a room in the Texas A&M system for every single one of them. If you are a scout and you have a scout and you send your children to any place other than one of these schools in the Texas A&M system, you have disserved that child. I'm telling you, I want you to, if you want to feel good about the future of what this country is about, walk on one of these two campuses, walk on the Texas A&M campus in College Station, and take a look at those kids. They are different. And they are the kind of kids that that every one of you would say, boy, I wish that was one of mine, because they are such good, clean cut, religious, if you're allowed to say that in public institutions now, because they are. And it is a pleasure to be around these young men and women. And it is actually a fact. I actually looked it up. I actually paid a guy to find this out because I knew it was the answer. We have far more Boy Scouts, former Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in the Texas A&M University system than any other system that exists anywhere in the country. And while we're on that, we're going to brag a little bit about Texas A&M and the Texas A&M system. I mean, one of the things that, Texas A&M, for instance, and these folks sharing that, and there's $40 million of research. There's probably between these two, nearly $100 million of research that happens. A&M itself has about $1.3 billion of research. In case you don't know it, we are now in charge of the A&M system of the nuclear weapons at Los Alamos. And so if you have need for a nuclear weapon, or somebody that's really bothering you, we can take care of your problem. So we also were recently named by the Pentagon as the system in the country to develop hypersonic weapons. You may have read that the Chinese are a little bit ahead of us right now. Some people say 10-1. And the Pentagon just chose the Texas A&M system as the place to coordinate the research for 192 universities to develop hypersonic weapons and countermeasures for hypersonic weapons. We think we're fixing to be named the head university for the Space Force research. And today, we just started a new campus in Fort Worth, just announced that about 4 hours ago. Our former students, whether they are at Corpus or whether they are at Kingsville or whether they are at A&M, have together over the last 3 years raised in excess of $5 billion for the students that are there. Our president of Texas A&M is going to announce tomorrow, which I think is Veterans Day, that anybody that has a contract in the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M will get something that she will call a Patriot Scholar, which means you go free. There is no tuition, no room and board, no food charge, no nothing. Everything is free because you're fixing to be an officer in the military of this country. And so that's kind of what we're about. That is also what Johnny Jackson's about. As long as I've known him, that's his attitude. That's what he believes. And you know, somebody that believes in this country, that's why he supported Phil. That's why both of us did at the time. He's the kind of person with his bride that, by God, believes in common sense solutions to things and is willing to roll his sleeves up. But I'm here to thank you and Johnny for his service, but to thank you for being here and believing enough in scouting so that kids like me, who was the shyest human being on planet Earth until I joined Scouts. Let me tell you how shy I was. First birthday party I went to, my grandma took me to it. It's my earliest memory in life. I was about 5 years old. And I got under the table and tablecloth and I hid till it was over with. And I heard my grandmother running around hollering, "Where's Johnny? Where's Johnny?" And everybody's gone. When I heard that everybody's gone, I said, okay, good, let's get the hell out of here. And scouting brought that out of me. The one thing that scouting does, in my opinion, is it teaches kids to love each other in a kind of a bond, almost a bond that exists in the military, a bond that exists in the Corps of Cadets, of people who work closely together to solve problems. Those camps at Karankawa, those camps at Canali were huge influences in my life to get me out of my shell. And I will always forever be grateful to scouting and the people that supported scouting, like the folks in this room. And thank you, Johnny Jackson, for what you have meant to all of us and to so many scouts for so many years. Gig 'em.
John, I'm going to ask you to come back one more time. We've got a special award for our scouts to give you tonight. So if you would come up here, they'll present that award to you. What you're receiving is first a copy of our council's centennial history book that we celebrated in 2019, and also a token of our appreciation, a scouting neckerchief to celebrate your ties to scouting. Thank you very much for being our speaker tonight. We're now at the point of the program that is really the reason we're here tonight. And I have to tell you, when I was first asked to do this, I thought we were roasting John. And so I had all kinds of good material that I dug up on him, and now I find we're honoring him and I can't use any of that. So I guess see me later. I do want to tell you though, that we really do appreciate everything that John has done for our community, for our region, and most importantly for scouting. He's had a tremendous impact on scouting, and I just want to thank you, John, and your family for all the involvement that you've had, and for thank you for being our distinguished citizen. I know you're not a person that seeks attention, and we really do appreciate that. So tonight, what I'd like to do is invite you to watch a video that's been put together to celebrate and honor John and all the things that he's done for our area. Afterwards, we'll come back and maybe give him a shot at follow-up. Thank you.
Well, I met John Jackson, I'd say about 10 or 12 years ago, when I first became active in the executive board for the South Texas Council. At that point, he was already heavily involved in the board and participating at great length. And I began to admire his participation and the role that he played on the board. And I'll tell you, the thing I admire most about John Jackson is his capacity for leadership. He's definitely sets a standard for taking charge of problems and leading the way through difficulties, whether it's financial problems or just structural, foundational problems for the scouting program. He just does a tremendous job of leading the way for others in the program. The thing about John is that he leads by example, and he's never afraid to teach us all how to push a little harder and reach a little further to reach our goals. When I think about John Jackson as a scouter and as a scout, I think of someone who came up through the program, and really, John Jackson never left the scouting program. I think he benefited from it as a youth. I think if you ask John, he'll tell you that a large part of his leadership abilities comes from his experiences as a scout. John, you deserve all of this, whether you like it or not. I can't imagine anyone better in our area for being celebrated for a Distinguished Citizen of the Year. You have done a lot for this scouting program, and that's how I know you best. But I also know that other people are going to talk about the other things you've done for your community and what you mean for the people and institutions elsewhere in Corpus Christi and Rockport and the coastal bend. For all of that, we thank you and we owe you a lot.
I got to know John, I guess, first on the Boy Scout Council Board and have enjoyed that relationship ever since. John's a special person. He's got a big heart, and he always is willing to help. And what I admire most is that he sees a project through, all the way through to the very end. Probably the best memory I have of John is when we were all trying to figure out how to raise money for Camp Carranqua. And several of us were asking ourselves who we could get to lead that effort. And we all decided John Jackson was the right person for the job. And we went to John and said, John, here's what we're planning and here's what we want to do. And we think we need to raise a certain amount of money. And John not only volunteered for it, he was anxious to help and decided that we weren't asking for enough, and we needed to raise more money to help out Camp Carranqua. John Jackson really exemplifies the Scout Oath and Scout Law. It would be difficult to pick out what exact parts, because I would say that he exemplifies all of them. But if I had to choose just a few of them, I would say he's trustworthy, he's helpful, and he's cheerful. And those are difficult things to do, particularly when you're in stress situations or where you're asked to do big tasks, which he's been asked to do on multiple occasions for the council. And John always has a smile on his face and always has a helping and cheerful word for everybody else. And he's just a great all-around person with a big heart. John, I can't think of anybody who deserves this honor more than you do. You've been a special friend not only to me and my family, but to the scouting program as a whole in South Texas. You've done yeoman's task in raising money and in being council president and in many other phases of the Boy Scout program. But most of all, you have a heart for scouting and a heart for scouts. And I want to thank you for that, and thank you for your leadership, and thank you for all the many hours you put in helping the scouting program in South Texas.
I came to know John in this building. He was a member of the old Gulf Coast Council Board of Directors, and I was invited to be a member of the Gulf Coast Council Board of Directors. And as a member of the Board of Directors, I got to know John, I got to work with John, I got to travel with John. And so scouting is what brought us together. I thought it was really interesting that when I came on board the Gulf Coast Council, there was a picture that I'll always remember of the flagpole at Camp Karankawa. And John was a young scout standing in front of that flagpole. And of course, he grew up in this area, he grew up in the Rockport area, and his scouting career started at Camp Karankawa. Well, I grew up in Fort Worth. I grew up in the old Longhorn Council, and our scout camp was Worth Ranch in Palo Pinto, Texas. And while John and I were working together in scouting, we became a member, our team, of the camp inspection team. And so one day I asked John, I said, you know, I grew up in the Longhorn Council, and I've been asked to go and do a camp inspection of my camp. Would you go with me? And he did. And it was, it really kind of brought two scouters together in places that meant so much to that one to me and Camp Karankawa to John, and I'll always remember that. That's pretty hard because there's a lot I admire about John, but his dedication is probably the one thing that I absolutely admire about John. If John looks you in the eye and says, I'm going to help you with a project, I'm going to lead a project, I'm going to be involved in a project, you can take it to the bank, because his dedication to the causes that he believes in is unsurpassed by anybody I know. I think helpful is the one that comes to mind with me. You know, as I said earlier, if there's something that somebody needs some help with, not only in scouting, but in his community in Rockport, if you look at the Education Foundation, you look at where he went to college at Texas A&I and his involvement in the university there, you know, he always is willing to help with causes that benefits the things that are important to him. John, I can't think of anybody in the Gulf Coast or South Texas Council that I've been involved with during my time, my 68 years, as a matter of fact, in scouting, that is more deserved of this honor.
I first met John, and I'm going to refer to him as Johnny because I'm talking about the 60s. And in the 60s, he was Johnny Jackson. And my first year at summer camp at Camp Karankawa, when I was probably still a tenderfoot, and I had just become a scout, and Johnny was already a staff member and really quite an iconic figure at Camp Karankawa, and quite a role model to me for many years when I was young. You know, the thing that impresses me most when I think about John is the sheer reach. And this is not so much a story but an observation. But you know, this was the baby boom generation, and there were a lot of us, and the scout camp was full. It was full all summer long, and there were hundreds of kids every week and thousands of kids over the course of the summer, and maybe even tens of thousands over the course of Johnny's tenure on the staff. And I think the number of young lives he touched is just staggering. And if even a small fraction of them carry memories like I do of Johnny Jackson and what a figure he was at the camp, there are hundreds of adults that could trace important parts of their youth to John Jackson. Johnny was such a good-looking guy. I mean, I was a little kid, and he was quite a bit older and more mature and more sophisticated. And he was, from the day I met him, he was a leader in the camp, and always just the consummate scout. When I think of him, I saw him as much more of an authority figure, and the stature that he commanded to the young scouts was much beyond his age. Much beyond, looking back, he was, 16, 17, and maybe in the later years when I was a staff member, maybe he was 22. But to me, he was an authority figure, and that authority came from just his integrity and what he gave to scouting. John, I don't know if you realize the reach of your impact back in the 60s and how many young people you touched, but when I try to do the math in my head, I think it's got to be thousands of young kids that you influenced in a positive way. So congratulations. This is an honor that is way deserved and way overdue. You will always represent in my mind the essence of what it is to be a good scout. Congratulations.
My wife and I retired and moved to Rockport in 1996. And shortly thereafter, we were fortunate to meet John Jackson. He was helping us with our investments, and it was a pleasure to get to know him. And we discovered soon that John Jackson had a very serious interest in supporting educational growth and cultural development in Rockport. Having been born and raised in Rockport, John had many ties to Rockport, and he was very interested in doing what he could to improve it. In the year 2000, Wayne Johnson, then the superintendent of the Aransas County Independent School District, met with John and some others and challenged the group to find additional financial support for innovative educational programs and to especially help the teachers. Then in 2006, John met with myself and others and charged us with a specific goal. He asked that we raise significant funds, and when he said significant, we knew we were talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And these were all designated to establish an education endowment.
It was the year 2000. My husband and I had just moved to Rockport when I was introduced.
I
especially then in
It was the year 2000.
Technology is great when it works, whether it's the lights or the video or the sound system, that's the world we live in. Unfortunately, looks like the rest of the video won't play, but that's okay. We're good scouts. We adjust. So at this point, I would like to invite two of the speakers that you did see in the video to come forward, Ralph Meyer and Richard Scanio, both leaders in the scouting program for many years in their own right, to finish up the most important part of our program. Gentlemen.
Good evening. In a room that's full of people that have devoted their life to scouting, and they have dedicated their life to the scouting ideals, and have truly participated to great extent to support our community and our area and our youth. I think tonight we've definitely identified a special person who has hit all of those tasks overwhelmingly so. So it's my honor tonight to present the South Texas Council's 2021 Distinguished Citizen Award to a true scout and an outstanding citizen of the Coastal Bend and South Texas, John Jackson. John, would you and Debbie please come up? Tell me what I do with it. Congratulations. Congratulations. Great.
Technology. You can tell the people that have known me a long time call me Johnny. And it started in the 60s, and I wish we could have heard the rest of the people. There were some really good people that didn't get to be heard tonight that I really feel for you, because I know you put a lot of effort into it. Maybe we'll make it, we can send it around in a YouTube video or something tomorrow. But first, I want to convey my heartfelt thanks and appreciation for this honor. I don't do things seeking or expecting recognition, but it's nice to receive it anyway, especially from people whom I hold in very high regard. I have several passions outside of my professional life, but besides my family, I guess the top three include my church, scouting, and education. Add to that history and music. And there are many other close seconds, by the way. But when I look back on scouting years as a youth, I realized that the path I took was heavily influenced by scouting. The values it teaches in leadership and development are unequaled, in my opinion. All of this began with being raised in a Christian household with committed and supportive parents who believed in their 4 kids and wanted the best for them. And scouting, of course, was one of their top priorities. My mother was a Cub Scout den leader, and though my dad was not able to be a troop leader, he was always there on the troop committee, and later was tapped out as a visual honor member of the Order of the Arrow on the same night that I was. Our dad had an incredible work ethic that each of us Jacksons to follow inherited. When I think about scouting, it's not just something that I did, it's who I am. During my many years in the Boy Scout program and my 7 years on the camp staff at Camp Karankawa, my future path was set for the rest of my life. And that's the main reason I've continued during my adult years as well. But my story is not unique. The room is full of people who can tell you the same thing. And I've really enjoyed being around my peers as an adult scouter because we all share the same passion, and these peers are almost always represented community leaders in the coastal bend in South Texas. Scouting is a true brotherhood that covers not only South Texas, but the whole country and many parts of the world. Being around people like the ones you heard on the video gives you confirmation and energy that just keeps you going, especially when you get tough like things are today. I've truly been blessed in my life, and it's important to me to continue to give back to the program which heavily influenced who I am. As for those things I choose to support or get involved in, it seems like I tend to choose the ones which are the most significant, which also many times are the most difficult, often because no one else wants to tackle it, but mainly because I prefer to take on projects which are significant, most worthwhile, and will make a lasting, multi-generational positive impact. And when I get focused and committed, I try very hard to overcome the obstacles, persevere, and never give up until the mission is accomplished. Perseverance, taking necessary risk, and never giving up is something I inherited from my parents. And fortunately, Scouting in South Texas has been a major beneficiary of that mindset, the focus and determination. And I also want to say that I'm humbled to be among the list of former honorees, most of which I've personally known, admired, respected, and some of them recruited to Scouting and to the board over the years. I want to thank especially the DCAD committee, the staff, and the video speakers who made this evening a success, but especially Chancellor John Sharp. I've known John almost 50 years, and of course followed his political career for years as a state senator in Aransas County, as well as his other statewide offices and roles, and now as chancellor of the Texas A&M system. I did not go to Texas A&M, but Texas A&I, so I guess I'm an Aggie by default. And last month, when they beat Alabama, was especially proud to be one. Chancellor Sharp, thank you so much for doing this once again for the South Texas Council. And to all of you who are willing to support this event with your attendance and the financial support, in person or whether it's virtually, I thank you the most because this event's proceeds are critical to the future of Scouting in South Texas. You chose to be here and participate, and on behalf of the South Texas Council, I want to thank you sincerely for making that choice. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Congratulations again for all of your hard work, your service, your dedication. You are a true Scout. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our current president of the South Texas Council, Mr. Gabe Guerra, for our closing remarks tonight.
I realize I'm the last one that's between you and the door this evening, but I would like to say a few things. First, John is truly a gentleman. The first few words of the Scout Oath are simply, on my honor, to do my best, to do my duty to God and my country. And John has certainly exemplified that well. There are many of us in here who listening to David Richter and his impact he's done. When I moved back to this community 15 years ago, John kept coming to my office and said, you got to join us. He knew I was a lifelong Scout, an Eagle Scout like himself. And what we know as Scouts is we look out for those amongst us who can help give back. John is humble, he's giving, he's got a big heart. And I'll tell you something, he continues to do excellent work in our community. But at the end of the day, it's those young people whose lives are being changed by Scouting that is most important. This last 2 years with COVID It's been extremely difficult, but I can tell you, John has been there the entire time. Steadfast, focused, dedicated. John, thank you for being a true scout. Thank you for living the scout oath, the scout law. We honor you. Congratulations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Because of our technical difficulties, we're going to post the video on our YouTube channel for the council. So please take the time to look at that when you have an opportunity. And we'll also be sending a link to that video out to all the sponsors tonight. So please share that as you can. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. J.C. Lugo, who will lead us in Scout Vespers to close our program.
Good evening, everyone. My name is J.C. Lugo, and I've had the opportunity to sing many times at functions just as this. But just like any scouting function, we always end in a song. And by special request from our scout executive, we're going to do two songs. We're going to do the Camp Karankawa song and followed by Scout Vespers. So if you don't know the words to the Camp Karankawa song, that's fine. But I'd ask that any staff member or a person that went to Camp Karankawa to please rise and join me in singing the Camp Karankawa song. On the hill above the water, up above the trees, flows the flag of Camp Karankawa, waving in the breeze. Camp Karankawa, Camp Karankawa, with your scouts so true. Scouts and scouters all together sing their praise to you. Now, if you would please rise and join me in singing the Scout Vespers. Softly falls the light of day as our campfire fades away. Silently, scouts should ask, have I done my daily task? Have I kept my honor bright? Can I guiltless sleep tonight? Have I done and have I dared everything to be prepared? Good night, Scouts, and good night, friends. Thank you for coming.